In a galaxy where power is held by an elite council of 200 civilizations, humanity has been deemed too dangerous, too unpredictable to join their ranks. But when the Council's decision to imprison Earth sparks an unexpected rebellion, humanity responds not with rage, but with a forceful demand for reformation. Now, as the galaxy stands on the edge of a monumental shift, one question remains. Will the galaxy's rulers embrace a new era of unity and equality, or will they fall victim to their own bureaucracy? The future of the galaxy hinges on the answer. The vast chamber of the Galactic Council, a place of immense political power and centuries of diplomatic history, was struck by an unusual and palpable silence as Supreme Chancellor Kaith rose from his crystalline throne. For beings that had lived for millennia, the sight of their leader trembling, an outward expression of vulnerability, was extraordinary. It was something no one in the chamber had ever witnessed in the Council's 10,000 years of existence. Kaith, whose iridescent scales shimmered with a cold, metallic hue, had long been a figure of unwavering authority. His poise and composure were legendary, with his every decision carefully calculated and deeply analyzed. But today was different. His entire demeanor betrayed an unusual emotion: fear. This moment of distress was entirely unprecedented for him and symbolized the gravity of the situation unfolding before the Council. Behind him, the holographic display shifted, showing an image that sent a wave of shock through the Council members. Human warships, battle-worn and scarred from recent conflicts, emerged from hyperspace with a sense of power and preparedness. Despite their damaged appearance, these ships were ready for further combat, their weapons primed for action. This was not the image of a defenseless species, as the Council had expected, but of a race that had clearly evolved and adapted in ways no one had anticipated. The warship's readiness was a stark reminder of the grave miscalculations made by the Council just a short time ago, when they had deemed humanity too dangerous for inclusion in galactic affairs. Kaith's voice cracked as he attempted to speak, revealing the stress of the moment. He struggled to begin his speech, as if the words he was about to say were as foreign to him as the concept of failure itself. Finally, he managed to say, "We acknowledge our grave error in judgment. We seek mercy from the humans whom we so grievously wronged." These words were heavy, not just because of their content, but because of the rare vulnerability they represented. In a council where power was typically exercised with supreme confidence, this admission of fault was a rare and significant act of humility. As Kaith spoke, the representatives from over 200 spacefaring civilizations watched in stunned silence, their expressions reflecting a mix of disbelief and regret. The Council had previously viewed humanity as unpredictable and too aggressive, traits they deemed dangerous for the galaxy. The gravity of their previous decisions was now undeniable. This was not just a political miscalculation. It was a failure to understand the true potential of a species. The holographic display and the Chancellor's emotional response marked the beginning of a profound shift in the galaxy's perception of humanity, and it became clear that this moment would forever change the galactic order. The Galactic Council had, not long ago, made a momentous decision that would come to haunt them in the present. Just 2 Earth years ago, they had voted to deny humanity membership in the prestigious council, deeming them too dangerous and unpredictable to be trusted within the greater galactic framework. Their rationale was rooted in a fundamental misunderstanding of human nature and capabilities, a mistake that was now glaringly apparent as the full force of humanity's unexpected resilience and technological advancements came into view. At the time of their decision, humanity had made incredible strides in technological progress, achieving faster-than-light travel in less than a century after discovering electricity. This rapid acceleration of scientific and technological advancements had raised alarms across the galaxy. The Council members saw the potential for humanity to become a disruptive force in the cosmos, a species whose quick evolution could pose a threat to galactic peace and stability. However, it wasn't just humanity's technological progress that unsettled the Council. It was also their history of conflict and war. Earth's history was steeped in violent conflicts, internal strife, and a tendency toward aggression. Furthermore, Human entertainment often centered around themes of alien invasions, which painted humanity as an unpredictable and volatile species. These cultural indicators led the Council to conclude that humanity, though intelligent, was not ready to join the greater galactic community. On top of this, humanity's recent advancements had spurred anxiety among the galaxy's other civilizations. The Council felt it was necessary to take action to contain humanity before they could pose a potential threat. The decision to create a quantum barrier isolating Earth from the rest of the galaxy was seen as the logical and precautionary measure. This preemptive containment was designed to keep humanity from further developing and to prevent them from expanding beyond their solar system. The Council believed that by stifling humanity's growth, they could safeguard the galaxy from an unknown and potentially dangerous force. But humanity's response was something no one could have predicted. In less than a month, humans had broken through the quantum barrier, defying the Council's expectations and the very technology that was supposed to keep them contained. This act of defiance shattered the Council's perception of human limitations. Worse still, humanity had not only broken through the barrier, but had also been establishing hidden colonies throughout the galaxy using stealth technology that the Council's best scientists had deemed impossible. It was a revelation that changed everything. Humanity was not just a species to be contained. They were a species capable of defying the odds and pushing the boundaries of what was thought possible. The Council's worst fears about humanity's potential were realized, but they had greatly underestimated the resourcefulness and ingenuity of the human race. This failure to accurately assess humanity's capabilities marked the beginning of the Council's downfall, as they were forced to confront their grave miscalculations and the realization that their containment strategy had not only failed, but had inadvertently sparked the very threat they sought to avoid. As the situation escalated, the Council's earlier decisions were further undermined by an unexpected turn of events. Humanity's alliances with species once dismissed as primitive or too violent for consideration. The idea that humanity had forged these alliances while the Council was fixated on isolating them from the galaxy became a critical turning point in the story. One such example was the Crayon, a species from the Outer Rim, who had long been seen as too aggressive for meaningful contact by the Council. Yet, humanity's involvement with the Crayon would reveal the Council's significant oversight in their decision-making process. Ambassador Chun, representing humanity, brought this issue to the forefront in her speech. She accused the Council of ignoring the distress signals sent by the Crayon for 3 years. These signals were a cry for help, as the Crayon were embroiled in a desperate battle for survival against the Vonka, a deadly insectoid species that had launched a devastating swarm against their civilization. The Crayon, however, lacked the means to communicate in a way that the Council deemed acceptable. Their signals didn't conform to the strict communication protocols used by more advanced civilizations, leading the Council to dismiss them as unworthy of attention. This oversight highlighted the Council's arrogance and short-sightedness. Their bureaucratic tendencies and rigid standards prevented them from responding to a genuine cry for help from a species in dire need. In stark contrast, humanity, which had been cast aside by the Council, chose a different path. Despite being under the Council's containment policy, humans responded to the Crayon's calls, offering assistance without hesitation. The humans provided military support, aiding in the defense against the Vonka swarms, and even assisted in evacuating Crayon civilians from the war-torn regions. These actions were not driven by a desire for dominance or self-interest, but by a genuine sense of compassion and responsibility toward another species in need. Furthermore, humanity used their advanced technology to help the Crayon rebuild, even on worlds previously deemed uninhabitable by the Council. This act of mercy and intervention stood in sharp contrast to the Council's cold indifference. The footage shown in the chamber further revealed the gravity of humanity's actions. Human warships were seen alongside Crayon vessels, defending refugee ships and ensuring that the Crayon survived the Vonka onslaught. This partnership between humanity and a species once deemed too primitive for contact was an eye-opening moment for the Council. It demonstrated that humanity's values of cooperation, protection, and mutual aid were far more progressive and beneficial than the Council had ever acknowledged. This act of unity also exposed the Council's failure to understand the true nature of humanity, showing that the humans had the ability to look beyond their own survival and help those whom the Council had left behind, reinforcing the idea that humanity was more than capable of leading and protecting others in the galaxy. This alliance with the Crayon, alongside the growing coalition of other primitive species that humanity had helped, highlighted a broader pattern of human intervention across the galaxy. While the Council had been busy deliberating the theoretical dangers of human expansion, humans have been actively shaping the galaxy into a more inclusive and cooperative space. In the process, they had formed relationships with those the Council had written off as insignificant, fostering a new network of allies who now stood with them against the Council's injustices. This shift in power, from isolation to unification, was a key point in the narrative and marked a critical challenge to the old order of the Galactic Council. It was clear now that humanity was not just a species to be feared or contained. They were a driving force for change, one that embraced diversity and offered protection to those in need, regardless of their perceived status in the galaxy. The moment when the Galactic Council, led by Supreme Chancellor Kaith, acknowledged its grave error and sought mercy from humanity is a crucial turning point in the narrative. For the first time in the 10,000-year history of the Council, the Supreme Leader himself was reduced to a position of submission, acknowledging the wrongs the Council had committed against humanity. This was not just a moment of political maneuvering. It was an unprecedented act of humility by the most powerful entity in known space, signaling a significant shift in the balance of power. The Council's plea for mercy, which came after humanity had already decisively broken through the quantum barrier and established colonies throughout the galaxy, was born out of desperation. The Council's initial plan to contain humanity by isolating Earth's system with an impenetrable barrier had spectacularly backfired. Humanity's capacity for advancement had far outpaced the Council's expectations, with humans achieving stealth technology, faster-than-light travel, and the formation of alliances that made the Council's original decision look not only short-sighted but dangerously ignorant. As the holographic display revealed footage of humanity's warships preparing for battle, the Council realized the gravity of their mistake. Humanity was not only capable of surpassing their containment, but it had the power to reshape the galaxy. This realization marked the beginning of the Council's retreat, with the leaders realizing they could no longer maintain their previous stance against humanity. In response to this apology, Ambassador Chun did not simply seek vengeance or punishment for the Council's actions. Instead, she took a more measured, yet forceful approach. Her words were not only a rebuke of the Council's lack of mercy toward humanity, but also an indictment of their callousness toward other civilizations. She called out the Council for its indifference, especially towards species like the Crayon, who had been ignored during their struggle for survival. This was a turning point in how humanity was being viewed, not as a primitive, chaotic species, but as one capable of moral leadership and compassion. Ambassador Chen's stance shifted the narrative from one of victimhood to one of empowerment and reform. Rather than seeking vengeance, humanity's response to the Council's plea was grounded in a desire to reform the entire galactic structure. Ambassador Chen's refusal to simply accept the Council's apology and offer mercy was a clear message. Humanity was not interested in maintaining the status quo or remaining subjugated to an outdated system. Instead, they sought systemic change, including the dismantling of the barriers between primitive and advanced civilizations. Humanity, along with their newfound allies, species that the Council had long dismissed, was demanding a voice in the future of the galaxy. This response was both strategic and symbolic. Humanity would not merely survive, but thrive in a restructured galaxy where they could help lead and protect other species. The idea of mercy was no longer just about forgiveness. It was about pushing for a broader, more inclusive vision for galactic governance. The plea for mercy, then, was not just a moment of weakness on the part of the Galactic Council, but a key opportunity for humanity to reshape the galaxy's future. Rather than letting the Council dictate their fate, humanity used the situation to gain leverage, push for reforms, and show that their approach to governance one of protection, unity, and the breaking down of barriers, was far more progressive and forward-thinking than the Council's bureaucratic, exclusionary mindset. It was a moment that redefined what it meant to be a leader in the galaxy, setting humanity apart from the other species and establishing them as a force capable of both compassion and strength. In her impassioned address, Ambassador Chen highlights one of the most critical and transformative aspects of humanity's stance toward the Galactic Council: indifference. Her words resonate powerfully because they identify the Council's systemic failings, particularly its cold bureaucracy and willingness to allow suffering in the name of governance. This moment is crucial as it unveils the heart of humanity's moral superiority and its call for systemic reform across the galaxy. Ambassador Chen begins by confronting the Council's failure to show mercy when it truly mattered. She directly accuses the Council of abandoning billions of innocent humans, labeling them as too dangerous to exist freely. This was a significant charge, as the Council had treated humanity as a threat based on their rapid technological advancement, aggressive historical tendencies, and the perceived unpredictability of their actions. Yet, when the Council labeled humans as too dangerous, they ignored humanity's potential for growth and cooperation. The decisive moment for the humans came when they were unjustly isolated from the rest of the galaxy, branded as a species to be contained rather than embraced. However, what amplifies Chen's accusation is her extension of this critique beyond humanity's plight. She draws attention to the Crayon, a species that had been similarly dismissed by the Council for being too primitive and aggressive. The Crayon had been fighting a desperate war against the Vonka swarms, and their distress signals had gone unheard for years, simply because they did not use the Council's preferred communication protocols. This revelation exposes the Council's blindness to the realities of species in peril. Their rigid adherence to bureaucratic protocols and their disregard for the genuine suffering of these species reveals the systemic flaws at the heart of galactic governance. The significance of this charge is not just in the condemnation of the Council's treatment of humanity, but in the broader implication it has for all marginalized species within the Council's bureaucratic structure. Ambassador Chen emphasizes that while the Council was busy enforcing narrow definitions of civilization, entire species like the Crayon were left to fend for themselves, unable to meet the Council's arbitrary standards. She contrasts this with humanity's actions, which were rooted in a much more inclusive, compassionate, and active approach. In spite of the Council's attempts to imprison humanity, humans responded not with aggression, but with empathy, offering aid to the Crayon and other species deemed unworthy of assistance by the Council. This section of the speech underscores the hypocrisy of the Council. By highlighting the Council's indifference toward species in need, especially those like the Crayon who had reached out for help, Ambassador Chen demonstrates how the Council's governing philosophy prioritized protocol and self-preservation over actual, meaningful intervention. Humanity, on the other hand, had taken a different approach. They stepped in where others refused to, not because it was easy or politically convenient, but because it was the morally right thing to do. They not only fought alongside the Crayon, but helped them rebuild and resettle on safer worlds, showing a stark contrast to the Council's coldness. Ambassador Chen's speech, therefore, is an indictment of the Council's systemic indifference, a bureaucracy so consumed with maintaining its own power and ideals that it turned a blind eye to the suffering of entire civilizations. Humanity's willingness to engage with the primitive and dangerous species that the Council rejected directly challenges the Council's authority. In calling out the Council for this, Chen shifts the narrative. Humanity, despite its past mistakes and aggressive tendencies, is now positioned as the champion of unity, cooperation, and justice across the galaxy. The humans were not simply victims of a harsh political system. They were agents of change, advocating for a new kind of galactic order where all species, no matter their status or origin, had the opportunity to thrive. This moment marks a critical juncture in the plot, where humanity takes a stand, not only for their own rights, but for the rights of others who had been ignored, oppressed, or forgotten by the Council's narrow vision. One of the pivotal moments in Ambassador Chen's speech is when she reveals humanity's unexpected alliances with other species that had been previously dismissed or even abandoned by the Galactic Council. This revelation underscores a central theme of the narrative: humanity's capacity to forge relationships, build coalitions, and act in solidarity with those deemed unworthy by the established galactic powers. It also highlights the disparity between the Council's bureaucratic, detached policies and humanity's proactive, empathetic approach. Chen begins by addressing how humanity has not only come to the aid of the Crayon, but also other species that have been marginalized or ignored by the Council. These species, once considered too primitive or violent by the Council, are now standing with humanity in solidarity. This marks a dramatic shift in the power dynamics of the galaxy. The visual of these formerly disregarded species now aligning with humanity is a powerful symbol of resistance against the Council's elitist and exclusionary stance. It also underscores a key point: the Council's definition of who is worthy of protection or assistance was flawed from the outset. These species may not have fit into the Council's idealized vision of galactic civilization, but they were far from helpless or incapable. The alliances that humanity has forged show not only the diplomatic skill and compassion of the human race, but also their strategic genius. While the Council turned a blind eye to these species, humanity stepped in to offer protection, trade, and support. By helping the Crayon and others, humanity demonstrated a key difference in its approach. It recognized that strength is not solely measured by technological advancement or adherence to certain standards of behavior, but by a species' ability to work together in the face of adversity. The unity that humanity fostered across species, some of whom were once seen as a threat or a burden, illustrates humanity's ability to create lasting, meaningful relationships that transcend political or galactic borders. The holographic display of the united human and alien fleets is a testament to this new, inclusive vision. The message is clear. Humanity has become the leader of a growing coalition of species who have been left behind or actively oppressed by the Council's narrow, bureaucratic policies. This image of a united front is not one of conquest, but of mutual defense and protection of vulnerable worlds. These species, working alongside humanity, stand as a challenge to the established order of the Galactic Council. They show that humanity has not only survived against the Council's attempts to isolate them, but has thrived by building a diverse network of allies. This alliance represents a radical shift in power, where the marginalized and dismissed are no longer passive, but are active participants in shaping the galaxy's future. Ambassador Chen's strategic revelation of these alliances is a direct challenge to the Council's previous decisions and an indication of how underestimating humanity had led to the creation of an even more powerful and diverse coalition. It's not simply about human strength, it's about the strength of unity. Humanity's message to the Council is clear. Their power doesn't lie in their weapons or technology alone, but in their ability to inspire cooperation, forge bonds, and stand together with those in need. This message is a stark contrast to the Council's approach, which was to divide and isolate. By highlighting these alliances, Chen shifts the narrative from one of human weakness to one of collective strength. With humanity at the helm of a galaxy-wide coalition that is built on cooperation, mutual respect, and the shared goal of creating a more just and inclusive galactic society. In the grander context of the narrative, this moment serves as a turning point. It shows that humanity, once considered a threat, has now become a beacon of hope and leadership for those who were neglected or oppressed by the Council's narrow and often discriminatory policies. The alliances that humanity has formed are not just political, but moral, illustrating that true strength lies in the ability to uplift others and create lasting change, not in dominance or isolation. One of the most significant moments in the narrative is Ambassador Chen's response to the Galactic Council's plea for mercy. This moment encapsulates humanity's strength, moral clarity, and vision for the future of the galaxy. Rather than responding with anger or vengeance, humanity, under Chen's leadership, seeks a path of reformation. It is a response that not only rejects the Council's past injustices, but also sets a new tone for the future. a future where humanity plays a central role in reshaping galactic governance. When the Galactic Council pleads for mercy, they are effectively acknowledging their grave errors in judgment. This is a moment of rare vulnerability for the Council, an institution that has operated for millennia with near-absolute power over galactic affairs. Their previous actions, including isolating humanity behind a quantum barrier and dismissing them as too dangerous, were disastrous. The Council is now faced with the undeniable truth that their attempts to contain humanity only made them stronger. In a desperate attempt to maintain control, they ask for mercy, but the question becomes, will humanity extend it? Ambassador Chen's response to the Council's plea for mercy is not one of immediate forgiveness, but rather one of forceful reformation. She understands that mercy, in the traditional sense, would be futile. The damage done is too deep, and the Council's actions too harmful for mere forgiveness to restore peace. Instead, humanity offers a more impactful solution: reform. Humanity's response is not rooted in destruction, but in a restructuring of galactic governance that will no longer allow for the marginalization of certain species or the maintenance of an unjust power structure. By choosing reform over vengeance, Chen demonstrates humanity's vision for a future where justice and equality are paramount. This moment is critical because it shows humanity's ability to think beyond mere survival or retribution. The human response to the Council's plea is grounded in a broader moral philosophy. Instead of focusing on punishment, they focus on systemic change. This is a stark contrast to the Council's actions, which were based on fear, prejudice, and an unwillingness to adapt to the realities of a rapidly changing galaxy. Humanity recognizes that true leadership is about creating a better future for all, not about perpetuating the cycles of domination and oppression that the Council has upheld for millennia. Chen's words are laden with the power of moral clarity. Humanity's fury isn't directed at your existence, but at your indifference, your bureaucracy, your willingness to let others suffer while you debate protocols. Here, she encapsulates humanity's frustration with the Council's lack of action and empathy. Humanity's fury is not blind rage, but a call to end the inefficiencies and injustices that have long plagued galactic politics. The Council's indifferent attitude toward the suffering of millions, including species like the crayon, was the true source of humanity's anger. By focusing their response on the need for reform, rather than on punitive measures, humanity is asserting a moral high ground, showcasing their leadership in a galaxy that had grown complacent in its bureaucracy and disconnected from the suffering of less powerful species. As Ambassador Chen's coalition of species stands behind her, humanity's message becomes even clearer. This is not just a human response. It is a collective response from a diverse group of species that have been marginalized and ignored by the Council. Together, they reject the old ways and offer a path forward that is inclusive, fair, and based on mutual protection. The presence of these species, standing united with humanity, emphasizes the broader scope of the reformation they are proposing. A galaxy where all voices are heard, where diversity is celebrated, and where cooperation, rather than fear and isolation, is the cornerstone of governance. The final shift in power happens when Chen makes clear that the Galactic Council's plea for mercy comes with terms. If the Council resists the changes, humanity and its newfound allies will take action. The holographic display of a combined human and alien fleet positioned in defensive formations is a visual representation of the strength behind the human-led reform. This imagery speaks volumes without the need for further words, making it clear that humanity's commitment to reform is not merely ideological, but supported by a formidable military presence. Ultimately, humanity's response to the Council's plea for mercy is a pivotal moment in the story. It shifts the focus from an era of unchecked galactic power to one where reform, justice, and mutual protection take precedence. By choosing to push for change rather than accepting the Council's pleas for forgiveness, humanity establishes itself as a new force in the galaxy. Not one that seeks revenge, but one that demands accountability, equality, and a future where all species can thrive together. The response is not about vengeance, but about securing a future where the mistakes of the past will no longer dictate the future. The moment when Supreme Chancellor Keith bows and accepts Ambassador Chen's terms is a key turning point in the story. It is a moment of submission from the Galactic Council, a body that has controlled and governed the galaxy for thousands of years. Keith's acceptance marks not only a dramatic shift in the political landscape, but also a symbolic gesture of humility and recognition of the changing power dynamics. This unprecedented act of capitulation signifies the end of an era for the Galactic Council and the rise of a new order led by humanity and its allies. Keith's actions, particularly his bow, are significant because they represent an act of submission from a leader who has never been forced to acknowledge their failure on such a grand scale. As the leader of the most powerful political entity in known space, Keith's authority had never been questioned before. The Galactic Council had long prided itself on its wisdom and governance, having managed the galaxy's affairs for millennia. However, the arrival of humanity and their swift, decisive actions exposed the flaws in the Council's decision-making and exposed its indifference toward the suffering of less powerful species. Keith's bow represents the surrender of the Council's power to a new order, one in which humanity and the formerly marginalized species now hold the keys to the galaxy's future. When Keith says, "I accept these terms, and I offer my personal apology to humanity and to all those we failed," it is not just a political maneuver. It is an acknowledgement of the Council's arrogance and its grave mistakes. The Supreme Chancellor's apology to humanity, once deemed too unpredictable and aggressive to be trusted, carries a weight of significance. It is a rare instance in galactic history where a leader publicly admits fault and takes responsibility for their actions. This is not just a political statement, but a moment of profound self-awareness for the Galactic Council, one that was driven by the overwhelming reality of humanity's strength and the growing power of the coalition that stood with them. The apology to humanity also signifies the realization that the balance of power in the galaxy has shifted. The Council can no longer afford to dismiss or ignore the demands of humanity and its allies. By accepting the terms laid out by Ambassador Chen, Keith and the other members of the Council are effectively ceding control over the galaxy to a new coalition that promises more equality, fairness, and inclusivity. The acknowledgement of their failure serves as a reminder of the danger of underestimating humanity's potential and the catastrophic consequences of ignoring the voices of those they once deemed inferior. However, Keith's apology is not a moment of pure reconciliation. It is an expression of the new political reality in which the Galactic Council finds itself. The terms presented by humanity are not negotiable. They come with the clear backing of military might, as evidenced by the combined fleet positioned across the galaxy. The Council's acceptance of these terms is forced, not out of goodwill, but out of sheer necessity. The Council understands that resisting these demands would result in a galactic-scale upheaval, one that would dismantle their authority entirely. This demonstrates the power that humanity now holds in galactic affairs, as the former marginalized species stand united with them to enforce their vision of a more just galaxy. The significance of this moment is also underscored by the dramatic change in the political structure that it heralds. The Galactic Council, which had once been the ultimate authority, is now being forced to accept a new, more inclusive vision for the galaxy. The promise of equality for all species, including those deemed primitive or too violent to be part of the Council, signals a fundamental shift in how galactic politics will be conducted. No longer will power be concentrated in the hands of a few elite species. Instead, the new galaxy will be one in which every voice matters. This represents not only a victory for humanity, but for all those who have been ignored or oppressed by the Council's bureaucratic system. The Supreme Chancellor's apology also reflects the fragility of the old galactic order. It is a poignant reminder that the galaxy's power structures were built on exclusion, fear, and domination. Humanity's swift rise, marked by its technological ingenuity, moral clarity, and commitment to justice, has broken down the barriers that the Council had so carefully constructed. Kaith's bow is, therefore, not just a surrender of political power. It is the final acknowledgement that the old ways are obsolete and a new era is beginning. It is a symbolic gesture that marks the collapse of an outdated political system and the birth of a more inclusive, equitable galactic order. In this pivotal moment, Ambassador Chin calls for the reformation of the Galactic Council and the galaxy at large, marking a profound shift in the political and social fabric of the entire galaxy. The demand is not just a call for a change in the way the Council operates, but for a transformation that will rewire the very structure of intergalactic relations. Humanity, once dismissed as a dangerous and unpredictable species, now stands at the helm of this change, alongside a coalition of species that were previously marginalized or considered primitive. The call for reform is not a vague plea for change, but a definitive declaration that the old system of governance, which was rooted in elitism, exclusion, and the status quo, is no longer acceptable. Ambassador Chin's statement that the Galactic Council will be reformed carries a weight of inevitability. It's a promise not just to the humans and the alien species who stand with them, but to the entire galaxy. The implications of this statement are far-reaching. No longer will the Council's decisions be based solely on a select group of species that view themselves as superior to others. This vision for a new galaxy is one that emphasizes equality, mutual respect, and shared protection among all species, regardless of their level of technological advancement or their historical conflicts. This vision rejects the idea that some species are too primitive to participate in the galaxy's affairs and replaces it with an understanding that the diversity of the galaxy should be its greatest strength. The phrase "species you dismissed will have equal voice" is a direct challenge to the Council's long-standing practices of hierarchy and discrimination. It is a declaration that all species, regardless of their past or their perceived weaknesses, deserve a place at the table and the right to influence the galaxy's future. This is particularly significant for species like the Crayon, who were ignored and abandoned by the Council because they didn't meet the Council's narrow criteria for civilization. Ambassador Chin's words highlight the injustice that these species endured due to the Council's refusal to acknowledge their worth, and she emphasizes the importance of inclusivity in the new order. The new structure that humanity envisions will allow for all species, no matter how primitive or unconventional their ways might seem, to have a voice in how the galaxy is governed. The dismantling of the barriers between primitive and advanced civilizations is a bold statement about breaking down the artificial divisions that have kept the galaxy fragmented. In the old system, these barriers were more than just social or political. They were existential, creating a rigid hierarchy that often led to the oppression of less advanced species. By tearing down these barriers, humanity is advocating for a galaxy in which cooperation, collaboration, and mutual protection are the guiding principles, not dominance and exclusion. It is a call to embrace the idea that every species, no matter where they are on the technological or social ladder, has something to offer the galaxy and deserves to be treated with respect. Ambassador Chin's speech is also a direct challenge to the bureaucratic and impersonal nature of the Galactic Council, which has allowed suffering to continue unchecked as it focused on its own self-preservation. The plea for mercy that was initially made by the Council is now turned back on them, with the demand for reform being framed as the only way forward. By presenting the concept of reform as a necessary response to the failures of the old system, Chin sets the stage for a more just, balanced, and dynamic galaxy, one that rejects stagnation and embraces evolution. The old Council, once proud of its wisdom and governance, is now seen as a relic of a bygone era, incapable of adapting to the new realities of the galaxy. The final part of Ambassador Chin's statement, in which she reveals the combined human and alien fleets positioned across the galaxy not in attack formation, but in defense, sends a clear message. The coalition is not seeking conquest or retaliation, but is simply ensuring the protection of vulnerable worlds. This defensive posture emphasizes that the reform is not based on a desire for domination, but rather on the commitment to safeguarding the galaxy's diversity. The threat of resistance is implied, but the primary focus is on building a new system that upholds the values of mutual defense, cooperation, and shared responsibility. By the end of this speech, Ambassador Chun has framed the future of the galaxy as one that rejects the old ways of thinking. The new era will be characterized by inclusion, fairness, and mutual respect. This transformation is not merely a political shift. It is a philosophical one, fundamentally altering the way species view each other and their roles in the galaxy. The vision for the reformed galaxy is one where strength is derived not from a hierarchical system, but from diversity, where each species plays a crucial part in the ongoing survival and flourishing of the galaxy as a whole. The call for reformation is both a warning and an invitation. The galaxy must change, or it will be left behind. The final moment of the scene is marked by Supreme Chancellor Keith's unexpected response to Ambassador Chen's demands. He accepts the terms for the reformation of the Galactic Council and offers a personal apology to humanity and all the species the Council has wronged. This is a profound shift in the political landscape of the galaxy. The Supreme Chancellor, a figure of immense authority and power, symbolizing the old order of the Council, is now acknowledging the deep flaws of that very system and expressing a willingness to embrace change. His acceptance is a crucial turning point, one that signals the collapse of the old power structures and the birth of something new. Keith's decision to bow, an unprecedented act within the context of Council history, underscores the magnitude of the moment. In many cultures, a bow is a gesture of humility, submission, and respect. The act of bowing before Ambassador Chun and the new order she represents speaks volumes about the breakdown of the old hierarchical and exclusionary ways of the Council. The Supreme Chancellor, a figure who once upheld the status quo with unshakable conviction, now finds himself in a position where he must acknowledge his failure and the failure of the Council itself. By offering his apology, he is not only admitting that the Council was wrong, but also showing that he understands the gravity of the situation. This is not merely a political maneuver. It is a personal acknowledgement of the mistakes made in the past and the need to correct them. This moment is significant not just for the Supreme Chancellor, but also for the rest of the galaxy. It represents the first real step toward healing the rift between humanity, the Council, and the various marginalized species. The apology, while symbolic, is a necessary part of the larger process of reconciliation and reformation. The Galactic Council, which once governed with an iron fist, is now acknowledging the importance of empathy, mutual respect, and cooperation. The acceptance of the terms marks the beginning of a new era, one where the voices of all species, no matter their history, are valued and heard. However, this shift in power is not a simple act of submission. The apology and acceptance by the Supreme Chancellor also reflect the reality that the Council has no choice but to bend to the will of a united front of species led by humanity. The combined fleets displayed by Ambassador Chen's coalition are a reminder of the strength and solidarity of those who stand against the Council's previous misdeeds. The Council is no longer the unchallenged authority it once was. It is now a body that must negotiate, compromise, and adapt in order to survive. Keith's acceptance of the reform is thus not only an admission of guilt, but also a recognition of the practical necessity of change. If the Council wishes to continue to exist, it must reform itself to reflect the new power dynamics in the galaxy. Ambassador Chen's assertion that today marks the beginning of a truly united galaxy is a vision that reverberates throughout the chamber. Her words represent not just the beginning of a political reformation, but also a philosophical one. The vision she lays out is one of unity, but unity based on mutual respect, inclusivity, and the breaking down of old prejudices. This is a galaxy where diversity is not feared or suppressed, but celebrated as a source of strength. The shift from a galaxy ruled by fear and exclusion to one based on cooperation and shared protection signals the dawn of a new age in which the focus is on collective survival and prosperity rather than the dominance of one species over another. As the chamber erupts in chaos, with some protesting the changes and others celebrating the newfound possibility of equality, Ambassador Chen allows herself a small, almost imperceptible smile. She has achieved a monumental victory, not through destruction or violence, but through the power of change and the strength of an inclusive coalition. The galaxy that she envisions will no longer be one where fear dictates policy or where bureaucratic indifference causes suffering. It will be a galaxy where the diverse species of the universe work together to ensure that no one is left behind. This is not just a victory for humanity, but for every species that has been oppressed, marginalized, or ignored. The final lines of the script emphasize that humanity's response to the Council's plea for mercy was not one of vengeance, but of reform. Fury didn't always have to end in fire is a powerful statement about the nature of conflict and resolution. It suggests that anger, when channeled correctly, can lead to positive change rather than destruction. Humanity's fury, in this case, is not directed at annihilation, but at the need for systemic reform and equality. This is a crucial message, that the pursuit of justice and the demand for change do not always have to come at the cost of violence. Sometimes, the force for transformation is stronger when it is wielded not to destroy, but to create a better future. This closing moment not only seals the fate of the Galactic Council, but also sets the stage for a new political and social order that promises a more balanced, fair, and inclusive galaxy. The power dynamics have shifted, and the galaxy is now on the precipice of a major transformation, one that will change the way all species interact with one another for centuries to come.